Hey guys, Sharpend here, and in this video we're going to break down the vocal chains in Dizzy. So let's start with the lead vocal. So without any effects it would sound like this. Make me dizzy till the sunrise I can. So it was recorded using this mic, the 80-2020. And as you can hear, I was a bit further from the mic, and also I just reduced the pitch vibrato of my vocals using Newton a bit. Other than that, there's no additional processing done. Make me dizzy. And now let's go and break down everything that's happening here. So first of all, I'm adding a tiny bit of autotune, and it's at a slow retune setting, so you won't really hear it. It's just to make sure that I'm on pitch. Make me dizzy till the... And then I'm compressing the vocal quite a bit. So I'm only compressing the very high moments of it, so it doesn't happen very often. But when it does, the ratio is at 3.2. I'm having some makeup gain, and the release is very fast. Make me dizzy. So as you can see, usually the compression doesn't even trigger, but like at loud moments, maybe here it will trigger. So this is basically to catch any anomalies that sound a bit too loud. This is a pop record, so it needs to be pretty even with the lead vocal at least. And then there's an EQ that reduces the very low and sub frequencies that we don't need for a vocal. And also it increases the high mids and the treble a bit. So let's hear it. Make me dizzy till the sunrise. And then there's Sweet Fox by Analog Obsession, and I'm using it to have some de-esser on the vocals so that we don't hear the S and sh and all of these vowels too loud. And I'm also using the process knob, which I'm pretty sure is like a very intense compressor and an EQ that boosts the high frequencies. Make me dizzy till the sunrise. I can't help but fall in love again. So yeah, as you can hear, the process can be very intense, so that's why I'm using it at a pretty low setting. And then my bread and butter for pretty much every vocal processing, the rev plate 140, and not for the reverb. The reverb is all the way off. It's for the drive. So it has sort of like a tube amp being driven sound to it, especially when you have loud vocals. So let's hear it. Make me dizzy till the sun. So far it sounds pretty much the same, but when you go to like the louder parts, like here for example, you can really hear it adds a nice bite to the vocals, and I really like that sound. It makes them sound a bit vintage and pretty cool in my opinion. And then there's another compressor with the exact same settings as the one before. This time, now that the vocals have been driven a lot, their gain has increased. So this will be used to even out the vocals entirely, so that you get a much more even vocal sound without any quiet moments or extremely loud moments. Hate how I'm feeling. You can really see the compressor is working overtime this time around. And then there's an EQ that slightly boosts the highs. We want it to stand out and stick out in the mix, so that's why it's there. And then there's another send channel that I'm sending the lead vocal to, which is called lead widener. Let's hear it alone. So basically what this is a channel with a compressor with a much lower threshold, so that a lot of the vocals will be compressed. The ratio is all the way up, the makeup gain is all the way up, and the release is all the way up. So this means that it constantly stays at a state of compressing everything. As you can hear and see, we get a much more squashed sound. And then I'm adding on top of that a very subtle and slight delay. So it's at 21 milliseconds for one ear and 23 milliseconds for the other ear. And it's at 100% wet. And I'm also reducing the highs so that we don't get like delayed shh and s, because it would sound pretty bad. And basically what this is a parallel compression technique, which widens the vocals, makes them more even again, and also makes it sound a bit less mono, because it was recorded using only one mic. So let's hear it together. Hate how I'm feeling. It just gives a very nice bulk to the vocals and makes them stick out a bit more, in my opinion. So now let's go to the bridge, where we have a bunch of harmonies and adlibs and stuff going on. So now that we're at the bridge, let's see what's going on here. I knew it was temporary. Down. So as you can hear, we have like a high adlib happening and a choir of harmonies. And the processing here is sort of similar. We have the exact same compressor settings and then an EQ that boosts the highs a lot and reduces the low mids and the lows by quite a bit. And I'm also adding fresh air, which adds a lot of that nice high frequencies to the vocal. So we get a much more airy sound. And also an EQ that boosts the high mids and reduces the lows. This is to blend these adlibs and choir better with the main vocal, so that it doesn't sound like the same thing. We're going for more airy sort of sound here. And there's no reverb, it doesn't work, it's just, I don't know why. Then there's a low adlib sound. Temporary. Which has pretty much one-to-one the same chain as the lead vocal. But I'm also adding a camel crasher because it also sings this part. And without the camel crasher, it sounds like this. And I wanted to add a subtle crunch so that when the vocal gets too driven, you get this slightly distorted sound. And I'm adding some nice delay to make it even cooler. And since we have this sort of processing for one type of adlib and another sort of processing which is more airy for the other kind, we get something that blends pretty well together. And then we introduce a bridge harmony right here. Still got disappointed. So this is pretty much the same as the adlib, the low adlib here. We also have the camel crusher just to give it a nice bite and crunch. And it's panned a lot to the right so that it doesn't mess or interfere with the lead vocal. Still got disappointed. Let's hear it mono. Still got disappointed, and up in the morning, it's boring. It's nice, but it feels like they're competing for space one against the other, so that's why it's panned, and it sounds, I think, much better. Morning, it's boring. Why? I can't get you out my mind. And then we have the lead vocal as before, nothing changes. But when we get to the falsetto part, I'm using a different channel for that. And it has the same compressor, the same EQ, and the same Sweetvox settings as the lead vocal, but as you can see, it isn't compressed again, it isn't being driven by the rev plate, there isn't an additional EQ. That is because I wanted the falsetto parts to sound a bit more laid back and acoustic, more organic, not as much processed, and also I didn't want it to have like distortion, I didn't want it to have a bite, I wanted it to sound airy and pretty much close to the original recording. I can't get you on my mind. Which is this. I can't get you on my mind. I can't get you on my mind. So as you can hear, it does sound pretty similar, just with like a bit of compression and also some more highs. But that is not the end. There's another mixing project in which I re-recorded some vocals and added a lot of harmonies and doublers and stuff like that. So now we'll be moving to that project to see what's going on there. Okay, so now we're at the mixing project for Dizzy, and we have a lot of tiny layers of vocals happening around here. So let's break it down. So For the pre-chorus, the second time it comes around, we have a harmony. Take another shot to find it, down the next one and it's gone for. And as you can see, it has pretty much the same chain as the lead vocal. I don't think there's any difference at all. Let's hear it without it. It's panned a bit to the left, and the main difference between these harmonies and the lead vocals is the harmonies group, which basically adds this plugin, which is Dimension D emulation, which just adds a nice widener effect to the sound. Take another shot to find it. Sort of like a very slow chorus that's very subtle, and also an EQ that reduces the lows. So let me play you the lead vocals without the widener. Take another shot to find it. They blend pretty much perfectly, and you can't really tell them apart. And once you add that widener to the harmonies, take another shot to find it. In my opinion, it's way more noticeable, the difference between these two, and it helps bring the focus back to the lead vocals. So yeah, in addition to that, there's also a choir. And I love making choirs because I just record like a bunch of takes and then add a lot of effects to make them sound choir-ish. So as you can see, it doesn't sound too choir-ish on its own, but I'm adding a lot of effects. So I'm adding Multiply, which is a great free plugin that just multiplies your sound. It just adds some volume modulation and a bit of chorus and also some delay, if I'm correct. And it already sounds a lot wider. And then there's the Dimension D plugin to make it even wider. And of course, Fresh Air to get that nice sizzly high end. And there's some EQ that's reducing the lows completely and slightly the low mids by a bit. And some nice reverb. It's at whole setting with a very short reverb time of 1 second. And it's mixed like 35% in, so not too much. And then another EQ, reducing the low mids by a bit. And then we get a very choirish sound at the end of all of this. There's also an Adlib that plays in between. Still haven't found it. And this Adlib had this long list of processing. Basically, the main thing is a very fast retune auto-tune setting. Still haven't found it. And it's also being gated. So that means that if the volume drops below a certain threshold that I set, it gets cut out and you get this choppy sound instead. Still haven't found it. Another weekend left behind them. Which I found that fits pretty well with the groove of that part. I'm just waiting here. And that's it for the pre-chorus part. So let's go to the chorus. So we have a low harmony that's using the exact same vocal chain. So again, this Dimension plugin really helps make it stand out a bit more. Make me dizzy till the sunrise, I can't. And in addition to that, there's also a high harmony down the road. You wanted someone else. You say you wanted. Which has the exact same processing, and again it's being sent to the harmonies group, so we can sort of tell the lead vocals apart from it. You say you wanted someone else. Another big part in the chorus is like a doubler for the final words at each part of the chorus. So we have a choir with the exact same settings as the pre-chorus choir. You can hear it's reverbed out, it has like the Fresh Air, sizzly high end. And then there's also a doubler take, which has some of that Dimension plugin. It does have some reverb with a very short setting. I don't need to drive there, I know, it's crazy. It does have Multiply as well, and of course Fresh Air for that extra sizzly high end. So we have like a slightly distorted sounding doubler and a very airy choir. And altogether it sounds much bigger. It also happens right here. Let's hear it without these. So as you can hear, it adds a very nice touch and a lot of energy to the chorus. In addition to that, there are also adlibs in the chorus, which are quite a special case. So let's see them. Here they are. So now let's take a look at the adlibs for the chorus. So we have a bunch of effects on them. So it starts with a patcher that contains all of the lead vocal main processing. And then there's a tube distortion plugin. After that, there's the gate, which basically means that if the volume falls below a certain threshold, it's going to get cut out and it gets a bit clicky and, well, gated. And then there's the rev plate with a lot of drive. We want that drive for the adlib. We want it to sound a bit crazier. And another compressor at the end. So in addition to that, I also rendered out some delay for that. And for the adlib group, I added some spring reverb. So together we get a sound that's a bit more wet. And also the tape plugin by Arturia just to create tape stops. And that's because I want the chorus to be fairly clean. So that's why I need to stop the reverb and delay from being too much. And then there's an EQ that reduces the lows by a bit. And I'm just adding some gain as necessary if the adlib sounds too weak. There's another adlib here that has pretty much the same treatment. Let it go now, it's Saturday night. And that's pretty much it for all of the special vocals that happen in this song. And then everything that you heard here is going into a vocals bass, which is this one. So it has neutron-free elements, and I'm using it just to compress very slightly the vocals. And EQ wise, I'm increasing the lows by a bit and reducing like resonant moments that happen in the low mids. Love again, you say you wanted someone else. So as you can see, it barely does anything. The compressor only looks for very intense moments that go past a very high threshold. And then there's Ozone 9, which is usually more of a mastering plugin, but I wanted to use it to control my vocals a bit better. So again, I'm removing some lows that felt annoying to me, boosting a bit of the higher mids, and removing some of the annoying high frequencies that can sound a bit too shh and s and all of that stuff. In addition to that, there's also a dynamics module. Love again, you say you wanted someone else. Which, as you can see, is working a bit harder. I chose a preset that complemented the vocals well. And basically the point of this thing is to make sure that all of these vocals don't overpower the instrumental, because I can control the lead vocals, but when I have a lot of layers, I would just want to make sure that nothing goes too much above the volume that I want it to be at. And that's pretty much it for the vocals in this song. There's a lot of vocals and a lot of processing, but together it sounds very coherent thanks to a lot of compression, some panning, and also the great Dimension D emulator, which helps set things apart from other things. So that's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. For more content, make sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram as well, and check out my playlists on the channel for other tutorials, track breakdowns, and my music as well.